Hello and welcome on our channel. And we continue to explore mental process in animals, and today we have the term about hierarchy of needs, and it is the bottom of the pyramid: security, safety, stress, sleeplessness and conflict. We have completed top part of this pyramid in last practice. We talked over the process of motivation in general, and we discussed the top of the pyramid of needs that motivate action and problem solving. But that we will discuss today is the basis of the pyramid. I want to say that everything rests on this. Agree that it's difficult to show that you are the alpha male, of you are exhausted and dying of the thirst and just want to sleep. We also explore the animal species communicate about a very limited set of things, revolving mainly around sex, about predators and the way found food. That is again the base of the pyramid, but here are no unimportant problems in the animal world. Absolutely, the search of food, water, protection from a predator, or the issue of production is always very important, and they motivate certain behaviors. So today we will talk about which way the animals choose to solve these problems, all these problems. We will discuss the domestic animals very soon, and in special slides. On this slide I want to separate the animals that have been domesticated. As you can see, the pyramid was already turned over, but it is for humans, and it is at a similar stage for pets. Yes, the life of the ordinary cat has changed a lot. Absolutely, it is the automatic kettle toilet that just looks like a space shuttle, even it's strange, very strange. It's automatic, absolutely. It's look special. We will consider this issue a little later, all about domestic pets, and today we will talk about mostly about native nature. And the two blocks of the base of the pyramid are closely connected to each other. It is the security and safety, and find the food, water and air, just clean water for fishes. We will start with the security today. It's always in the attempt of the avoid stress. Danger is always associated with stress. We are here now in this picture, and what we find exactly what is this stress. Animal stress occur when the livestock is required to make extreme or prolonged adjustments in order to adapt to the current environment or surroundings. And animal stress can be classified in three ways: physical, due to fatigue or injury; physiological, due to hunger, thirst or the temperature control; and behavioral, due to environment and familiar or people, animals or surroundings. And here is this what can happen in a stress situation, and even just a noise or just to say it about isolation can be the cause of the stress. The factors or triggers that cause stress are referred to as stressors, and can vary anywhere from things like an unfamiliar noise or an overcrowded housing environment it is important to understand the root cause of the stress in order to help about the impact this cause for the animal. Also, many animals might be able to tolerate a single stressor for a short period of the time, like adaptation to the stress, but it takes a short period of the time, does not impact multiple stressors, or prolonged periods of the time lead to distress and suffering and even a death in this situation. And what we have, what is this different stress factors and defining what is the stress? It's just a history. Early in the 19th century, Claude Bernard defined stress as a part of our mention. It's just as the perturbation of the otherwise constant state of the inner state of the organism. And 50 years later, Cannon redefined this concept using the word homeostasis. And homeostasis was defined as a coordinate physiological process which maintains a steady state in the organism. Cannon also proposed the fight and flight response as a major mechanism by which an organism responds to stress or danger, and here you can find the links to this different stress. And we find one more name of scientist, Seeley, expands the definition of stress to include the non-specific response of the body to any demand made upon it, and definite three stages of the general adaptation syndrome or biologic stress syndrome. At first stage is recognition of an agent. The second stage is the resistance or adapting the body to adjust to the stimuli, including release of secretory granules from the adrenal cortex into the bloodstream that alter tissue metabolism, and this stage is also recognized as the alarm reaction. And the last stage, its stress persists, is the stage of exhaustion. Then can be adaptation is lost and finally leads to the decrease or even death. And if you want to know more about this theory, we can find this. And in main concept, the Cannon-Bard theory are that emotional expression results from the function of hypothalamic structures, and emotional feeling results from stimulation of the dorsal thalamic area in the brain, and the physiological changes and subjective feelings of an emotion in response to stimulus are separate and independent. Arousal does not have to occur before the emotion. Thus, the thalamic region is attributed a major role in this theory of emotion, and the theory is therefore also referred to as the thalamic theory of emotion. And as usual, I will leave a link. And of course, this is not the only theory. I leave a link to the video that compares the two theories, and I also recommended watching a video on our channel that explains the work of the autonomic nervous system, especially the sympathetic part of the autonomic nervous system. It is the same and very connected with the stress. So, and one more theory is two names of scientists in the late 20th century. They considered stress as a consequently or inconsistent synthesis threat to homeostasis, which exists within the range of specific parameters. This changing definition reveals how difficult it is to precisely define stress response, which now includes a much broader definition of the fight and flight and even a freeze response. Especially for animals, it is very often just a freeze reaction. Contributing elements to stress response have been different as the physiological or such psychical factors that are perceived by an organism in a variety of ways, and these factors disturb the homeostatic state, but the organism has the capacity to initiate complex of coordinate psychological and physiological response to each stressor. This response includes not only this classical fight and flight reaction response, but also the freeze response. And we discussed about this reaction in our previous practical. Do you remember? And playing this seems like the last ditch effort of someone or something that has given up all hope. When you have no ideas left, just stay very still and hope the world passed you by. It's not clear and it's not take a lot of skill, but you'd had be surprised at how effective it is. But just not for a bear's attack. Yes, it's not good idea because bears prefer even dead bodies and even with a bad smell. And here we see in pets or domesticated animals sometimes we have this reaction. So we have the video files about how the animals use the dead state for surviving. The stress response, one more slide, two different signaling axes have been identified by which mammals, mood and mount and integrate physiological response to perceived danger. The response to danger is initiated at the level of the hypothalamus, which realizes corticotropin realizing hormone or factor, and one more vasopressin. These hormones transmit a signal to the pituitary gland to initiate release of adrenocorticotropic hormone, which targets the adrenal cortex, and the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis initiates one arm of the endocrine response to stress. And this mediated by the release of glucocorticoids from the adrenal cortex, and the second arm of this response is very rapid and involves the sympathetic adrenal medullary axis, in which insume the release of the catecholamines from the adrenal medulla, and this initiates the fight and flight response that includes an integrated behavioral response to perceived danger or acute stress, as well as the metabolic and immune response. It's a difficult way, and of course you already know a lot about the sympathetic nervous system and endocrine regulation hormones, and here we see especially in immune system response, even apoptosis, it's like death of the cells. And yes, hormones are great importance in all this system. On this slide you see the results of the effect of the stress hormones on the metabolism, behavior, and the immune system is a marker of just a red colored. And stress is resolved, the homeostasis can be restored, but if a stressor persists or occurs repeatedly, when perturbation of the homeostasis state may result in a physiological and psychological pathology from the persistently of domestic animal reproduction. These pathologies may manifest as altered behavior, decreased immune protection, and impact diseases susceptibility or altered metabolism that impacts either growth, production, or a combination of these responses. Quantifying the impact of stress of animal production may be very difficult, as many of these manifestations may occur at a subclinical level and you don't watch it in animal. So in the cattle, here we see this in the cattle industry, stress among livestock of the is one of the top issues producer face. Stressors can hinder the overall productivity and health of cattle. Cows may be even more susceptible to the adverse effect of stress. Yes, and here we can find the article about the stress management in cows. If you want to know more about the symptoms of the result from the environmental stress for calves, I will leave the links. And for behavioral stress, it's important to look at the factors that can contribute to the root cause of the stress needed to improve the livelihood of the animals. The following are common factors that affects animal in production, like a climate. It's very important now. Overcrowding and familiar surroundings and noise and staff and familiar and a lot of procedures like a vaccination, especially for vet doctors. It's very important to know. And animals instinctively want to maintain homeostasis, which means they may respond to external changes to rebalance the body's internal system. For example, when heat stress, cattle may drink more water and seek out shade, and collectively we call this stress reducing behavioral thermoregulation, and you can to have the animals to have shade, for example, in a hot day. It's a question of thermoregulation. It is a very difficult question, especially in a region where the temperature, and especially in the daytime, very, very hot. For one, thermoregulation is easier for animals on hot days than cold ones. A coal can only do so much on its own to reduce stress from external factors, because stress can have a significant negative impact on the heart. Owners should take steps to minimize stress among cattle. So it is a hot stress can do very difficult and negative factors for energy balance, for production, and even just to especially for some kinds of animals. In the context of climate change, one of the most important problems in the becoming heat stress. We are seeing it more and more. As you know from the physiology course, some animals have big problems with the thermoregulation. I said about the pigs. Keep the comfort temperature within very narrow limits. Here we see this a little, about 5 degrees. It's very small range about temperature. If I set it 5 degrees more, it's heat stress. And 10 degrees more, it is just emergency stand for some animals. For pigs, for example, here we see this. And this problem is so important that it's solved at the state level, and even for some from the New Zealand ministry. Just for example, here is a program of the Ministry of the New Zealand, which decided what to do with this heat stress for example, for sheep. And I want to talk about one more thing in the form of animal stress. It is the horse stress. Horses are very sensitive animals, very sensitive, especially for stress factors after the competition. Horses can experience various levels of stress, and they can express this emotion in different ways. There are two prominent types of stress in horses too. Acute stress and chronic stress can be, and acute stress is short-term stress, which may not be as obvious. And just, however, it's important to understand when your horse is showing signs of acute stress. Since if left untreated, acute stress can lead to chronic stress. Just untreated acute stress, just move and do the chronic stress. Chronic stress leads to long-term problems that are more serious and can be much harder to deal with successfully. Here we see this, some of the common things that your horses may be stressed, like in acute stress and in chronic stress. If you want to know more, I just leave the link to the site. It's a very interesting site for who want to know about horses stress more. And just simple way to reduce stress before, during and after your horse's performances or competition, and just keeping a consistent routine, daily routine for this horse, and proper hydration and regular exercise, this, and water during the travel, and provide hay and keeping them exposed to a consistent temperature, and remember the importance of digestive health, of course. And if you want to know more, leave a link to the channel as usual. And what about the stress in non-domesticated animals? Last time we already talked about the solitary keeping of animals, and today I want to focus on the keeping of circus animals, and about the problems that are caused by constant stress for these animals. Now in the world, some countries decided don't keep the circus with animals, and in Ukraine the same. And here you see a table of consequences of such content. Here physical and psychological condition, and here we see effects and factors, and what can be with animals in different states, and affected species, all species, which we can define in the circus. And mental problems too, especially with tigers, big cats, elephants, and it's very often stereotypical behavioral. And mental, it's very important to animals. And I just leave the links to the article about analysis through the 5 domain circus animals welfare. What we have more? The problem exists not only for circus animals. Of course, stress stimulus on hypothalamus produce hormones, stress factors, which in turn acts on the enteral pituitary to realize adrenocorticotropic hormone, as we said about this. And cortisol is the principal glucocorticoid which inhibits reproductive function in animal cells, and it can be just in wild animals too. And the wild stress factors are also important, that they lead to the extinction of species. By measuring the concentration of the stress realized hormones and analyzing them alongside the environmental data, scientists could infer which human activities took the heaviest toll on the impalas bodies, for example, only for impalas in wild life, and call it wildlife stress physiology. Yes, you can find this article about stress test for impalas, but everywhere the stress has the same problem. There is another manifestation of the stress, which is more characteristic for people, but animals also manifest insomnia. I want to say that we are still in the pyramid of needs. Here we see the sleep and sleepness. It's amazing how everything is connected with each other, and it is the base of pyramid of needs. This article will help you understand the evolution of the formation of the sleep stage for animals. As you know from a previous hour physiology course, you know that sleep occurs in animals and consists of 4 stages: non-repeat eye movement sleep. Here we see this including slow wave sleep, makes up the first 3 phases and is usually followed by a 4th phase, the rapid eye movement sleep phase. And it's a very important phase. REM sleep is characterized by atonia and a state in which most muscles of the body completely relax. Unlike other states of altered consciousness such as soma or hibernation, sleep can be reversed easily. In addition to visual scenes such as lying down or finding a protected place to pitch, sleep in animals is recognizable by closing of the eyes in those with eyelids and distinct patterns of brain waves if we do the electroencephalogram. And sleep is extremely important because of its restorative properties, its restorative states, especially for nerve system, and reduced our heart rate and blood pressure. For instance, a chronic lack of REM sleep can impair cognitive performance and trigger of worsened cardiovascular and other metabolic diseases of the extent that it can significantly shorten our lifespan, and in the animal case the same, they lead to the death. And like in humans, a lack of REM sleep can also be detrimental to horse health and well-being, and other functions of the sleep may include helping the brain restructure and reorganize, and just after injury, improving the rise of speed of synapses between neurons, restoring the capacity of the learn, and creating long-term memory. And if you want to know how do horses sleep, you just move on this side. And if you want to know more, it's very important for horses. It's just a pauses like a horse's sleep. It takes a little time, about 20 minutes, but it's very important. Do you remember our first lecture where we discussed innate behaviors? We discussed circadian rhythms. And here we see the sleep limits the ability to defend against predators and prevent such important activities as mating and the collection of food. For this reason, researchers theories that sleep has a critical evolutionary function, and some animals just change the daytime or the nighttime. And here we see discussed circadian rhythms and even divided the animals into those who are awake during the day or at night. But in reality, everything is a little more complicated. Just not a diurnal and nocturnal. We have a little more animals. Here we see nocturnality, maternality animals, and diurnality animals is a form of animal behavior characterized by activity during the daytime with a period of sleeping or other inactive state at night. The timing of activity by an animal depends on a variety of environmental factors such as the temperature, the ability to gather food by sight, the risk of predation, and the time of year. Many types of animals are classified as being the diurnality and maternality. They are active diurnal animals can be active during the daytime and inactive or have periods of rest during the nighttime, and commonly classified diurnal animals include mammals, birds, and reptiles, and most primates are diurnal animals. Here we see the one more animals. Initially, most animals are diurnal, but adaptations that allow some animals to become nocturnal, nocturnality. This that helped contribute to the success of many, especially mammals. This evolutionary movement to nocturnality allowed them to better avoid predators and gain resources with less competition from other animals. This nocturnality is an animal behavior characterized by being active during the night and sleeping during the day. The common objective is nocturnal versus diurnal, meaning two opposite. Nocturnal creatures generally have highly developed senses, organ, hearing, smell, and specially adapted eyesight. Some animals, such as cats and ferrets, have eyes that can adapt to both low level and bright day levels or illumination. See maternal. Others, such as bush babies and some bats, can function only in night. And many nocturnal creatures have large eyes, big eyes, in comparison with their body size to compensate for the lower light levels at night. And they have been found to have a large cornea and in their eye size and diurnal creatures to increase their visual sensitivity on the low light condition. And here we see this even characteristic in eye. This did with some adaptations that mammals live with today. Vision has been one of the most greatly affected senses from the switching back and forth from diurnality and nocturnality, and this can be seen using biological and physiological analysis of the root nuclei from the primates' eyes. This includes lost 2 or 4 cones obscene that assist in color vision, just change the color vision, and making many mammals just dichromates. When early primates convert back to diurnality, but better vision that includes color vision became very advantageous, making diurnality and color vision adaptive traits of semiforms, which includes humans too. And here we see this. And many animals do not fit the traditional definition of being strictly nocturnal, diurnal, or crepuscular, often driven to factors that include the just availability of food, predation pressure, and variable ambient temperature, and here we see this just to change the activity in different times, and can sleep 4-6 times per day and be active in different time. So move on one slide more. The way animals sleep depends on their size that they eat and their unique physiology. In general, small animals sleep more than large animals, so they may sleep for only a few minutes at a time. Whales and elephants sleep 2 or 3 hours a day. This type of sleep may not occur in interrupted blocks of time, but in brief stretches of half an hour or even less. And here we see smaller animals may be more at risk from predators, making the ability to sleep in short time for survival, and being awake, vigilant, ready to move is important for prey animals, while sleep makes them vulnerable. Sleeping in underground and or other hidden areas can also make sleep less dangerous, and large animals have less to fear from natural predators and can sleep for more periods of time with less fear, and consolidated sleep allows large animals to spend less time in traditional state between walking and sleeping, and more time in productive activities such as hunting or mating, for example. And sleep and metabolism, it depends on the metabolism too. Small animals like mice have faster metabolism, making their bodies use the energy more quickly than animals with slow metabolism like buffalo, like elephants. The brains of animals with faster metabolism contain large number of neurons, while the neurons in the brains of large animals are less dense. The end secret of the way small animals sleep may lie in their brains, which generate more waste byproducts called metabolites. And these waste metabolites accumulate products in the brain can cause smaller animals to fall asleep more frequently, and they may even fall asleep while eating or engaged on their activities and sleep more than 20 hours a day. In contrast to the brains of bats and brains of large animals generate less waste material, so they just don't need sleep so much time. Here we see giraffe just about 2 hours a day, and here we see these little cats sleep almost half a day, and it's a lot for dogs even. Here we see another hypothesis about animals and sleep is large animals need to eat more to sustain their superior muscle mass. Many very large animals are not carnivores and take in relatively few calories in comparison of meat eaters. Large animals who subsist in grasses and leaves spend less time sleeping than carnivores, and more time just for taking food in a body, and just elephant, giraffes, cows, and a lot. Large animals tend to move more slowly than smaller animals, which may help explain their reduced need to sleep. They also express more time to each stage of sleep. And here we see. So what about dolphins? It's extremely to sleep with only one half of your brain, big hemispheres. Just so these animals sleep only with one hemisphere. As you know, if you want to know more, you just move on our physiological part and find this information. And here this site will help you. Sleep is very important for the psyche, and decades of studies prove that insufficient sleep has significant health effects such as reduced cognitive function, lowered immunity, increased risk of diseases and death, and sleep may serve to protect some species of animals from predators and other dangers by keeping them inactive. For example, here we see just inactive state, hibernation. Hibernation, inactive state just in the winter time, and even in summertime it can be too. Estivation, like you see, to some extent sleep helps animals reduce competition, since they can live in the same area and not even meet, since they are awake in different times of the day, and ability of animals to reduce competition of difficult climate condition is hibernation and estivation. And now let's discuss stress in wild animals. Yes, in the first place, stress factors are simply lack of water or food, and this certainly leads to competition and conflicts both within the species and interspecies, interspecific. Animals who live in the wild face many sources of harm. Conflicts between animals are one of these that cause great misery of animals. This conflict between species can take the form of predation or parasitism, and conflict are also common within species over territory, food, and this conflict can lead to severe acute injuries, some of which may become chronic, as well as causing fear and stress. Many animals are also killed through these conflicts, and even for very usual animals, you are interested in learning more about the subject. Here I find many articles on websites on the topic here this previous about stress in wild animals and suffering, and of course view other related videos in our course about wild animals suffering here. Have you ever watched a bird fight and seen two birds fight over a position of the feather of a big bird like a crow or jay arrive and screw away the smaller seen birds? If you are witnessing a common animal conflict over shared resources. Animal interaction can create two types of conflict. There is interspecies between animals in the same species, and interspecies between animals in a different species. Intra-species conflict and interspecies conflict. Here we see one of these examples. Interspecies competition can occur due to social status, mating, or fighting over limited resources. Interspecies competition is seen typically when members of different species compete for shared resources. This conflict can establish something known as a dominance hierarchy, which is a complex set of rules that can govern who gets the first preferences. And here we see this woodpeckers conflict with hummingbirds place hunter of the hierarchies and expected from their size, mostly likely due to their aggressive behavior or deterrence. Like the woodpeckers, scarabell mountain goats are an introduced species that occupy the same habitat, the niche in the bighorn sheep in the Eagle River Valley as this territory, and while they are similar size, the same size animals, researchers have observed sheep being dissuaded from the approaching southern bonds by just the presence of the more aggressive mountain goats, establishing the clear hierarchy. Here we see the three and only one, and one this can say that I am dominant in this area, it's my area. This conflict can be even, as you can see, there are different types of conflict, and interactions or conflict between humans and large predators occur globally, can be just within the animals and humans. And media research is now global and rapid, and particularly through Western news outlets and amplified by social networks. This has for how the public perceive human predator conflicts, and in turn how this impacts species conservation and management. To address this point, the literature search was undertaken to synthesize global records of predator-human conflicts, followed by an assessment of media reporting of conflict for both sharks, for example, and the lion, tigers, leopards, and puma bear species, and a lot of these conflicts even in this site. And here, the establishment and maintenance of dominance hierarchies. Animal groups are often organized hierarchically, with dominant individuals like an alpha getting priority access to resources and reproduction over subordinate individuals. Individual dominance hierarchy formation may be influenced by the multiple interacting factors, including an animal's individual attributes, convention, and then organizing social dynamics. After establishment, hierarchies are typically maintained over the long term because individuals save time, energy, and reduce the risk of injury by recognizing the by established dominance relationship in group, and separate set of behaviors are used to maintain dominance relationship within group, including behaviors that stable rank, as well as the signals that provide information about dominance rank, like a signal dominance. And here we discussed about this, and this pyramid the same, of course it's and again return to the pyramid of needs, and it became the basis for the formation of the dominance hierarchy. And dominance hierarchy in wild animals that live in a group tend to energy out of necessity as a way for animals to in an environment where traits are constant and resources, food, water, mates, and more, and limited. As a group, members have access to more resources than they could obtain as an individual, and can better defend their territory from threat. And in multiple species, alpha males tend to take responsibility for initiating offensive action against potential threats, and are allowed first access for food and mates, of course, but it's not so easy to understand in the alpha individuals. It's a status, but sometimes dominance in the individual's preferential access to resource. And sometimes in a group we can find the beta wolves, omega, and other, and it's not so easy, and I just leave the link to this site about biology and dominance hierarchy for colony of wolves. It's very interesting. Some groups are even more complicated. Here is the example of the wolves. I will leave the links. And more benefits, of course, the benefits of group formation, and we will discuss about the group and social behavior next time, but just a little is, of course, the foraging success and for alpha, and social stress include conformation. It's because the alpha takes on the social stressors on the alpha male, and however a lower ranking position in a dominance hierarchy is not necessarily associated with the more stress, and effect that is particularly evident in situation of social instability. In fact, the highest ranking animals in a group can have the highest stress value. It's always the same. It's very similar like in humans. The both always stressed more. And social bonds provide multiple pathways, and reproductive success in the wild mass chimpanzee, for example, social bonds provide multiple. And as usual, I leave all these links from this practical as usual in our. And here we can find a lot of new information about stress factors in a dog and cats. It's just some our articles, missing pet stress and veterinary practical visits, very interesting. And as usual, your homework for today, it's just in our book. You can find the chapter 4 about decision making and motivation, and the parts of homeostasis and negative feedback about the stress factors. And one more, you should read the chapter 2, key concepts of animal behavior, about adaptation. And see you later next time. Bye bye.